It's another Elisha story that is of interest to you. And later on the show, we will open the phone line so you can also be actively involved in what is happening in the studio. And let us quickly run through the paper, starting with this day newspaper.
On this day newspaper, as Nigeria struggles with crude theft, Saudi Aramco posts record $161 billion profits. 57 marginal fields, lack of corporate governance, finance delay firms progression to oil production. You can find the details on page 6. NECA urges incoming president to outline plans for economy. Coming from Atiku, Wike's 40-year-old whiskey comment confirms he's under alcohol influence. Says Rivers governors grows not about Southern presidency. Comments moves to secure US-UK visa ban against governor. You can start with the story on the front page and continue on page 5. And the big story on this day newspaper, US diplomat, even supporters of winners in Nigeria's poll disappointed with electoral process, says INEC failed to live up to high expectation it had created for itself, insists Nigeria, Africa must learn from mistakes. We have a picture story that says valedictory court session in honor of retiring Justice Rita Pemu, and that's all the news on this day newspaper.
Let's take a look at the leadership newspaper. Police on Naira note obeys Supreme Court order, ACF tells President Muhammadu Buhari. And we have a story on fact check that said, did the coalition call for APC national chairman resignation? That is a question. And if you hope to know more of the answers, you can check that on page 2. And also we have US bank collapse may affect financial inflow and jobs in Nigeria. About $1.2 billion funding for Nigerian technology startup may be threatened, and job losses are imminent as the ripple effect of the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank, the 16th largest bank in the United States of America, begins to unfold. Leadership has learned. The technology world in Nigeria beginning to weigh the option of laying off staff as operating fund gets stuck. The Nigerian IT ecosystem is vibrant and has about 3,340 startups as of December 2022, which is almost 5 times that on page 7. Serap Fault planned shutdown of broadcast stations, and we have repentant terrorists, 36 others arrested for drug trafficking. First Nigerian female senator Franca dies at 79. You can read more of that on page 7. The big story, Rex to brief INEC chairman on Beaver's configuration today. With the rider upload of presidential results suffer glitches on the result viewing portal. APC group won against planned protest by Labour Party supporters, says invitation to crisis. You can find more of that story on page 4. We have a picture story where we can see the remain of the corps member who was killed in Lagos train accident last week being taken for burial in Lagos yesterday. This is really a sad one. We can see some of the corps members holding him in the corpse over there with the Nigerian flag on top of the coffin, and that is all on the leadership newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, 17 corpses found after bandit attack community in Kaduna. 24-hour curfew imposed in 4 villages. We have still on Naira redesign, comply with Supreme Court ruling to avert unrest, ACF advises Buhari. And you can continue with that story on page 28. And the big story, governorship poll. Lagos, Oyo, Rivers, Kaduna, Delta, 8 others are key battle states. Photo finish races expected in Sokoto, Nasarawa, Akwa Ibom, Benue, and Kano. You can find the details on page 22. Train bus incident, Lagos hospital discharged 21 more patients, total now 53. And on presidential poll, we hope courts will work so that we don't hit the street, coming from Labour Party. You can find the details on page 3. South, South, Southeast, Northwest in race to succeed Lawan. The writers say APC, NWC, Tinubu open discussion with new lawmakers today. The details can be found on page 23, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On Daily Sun newspaper, senators-elect favor the Southeast for Senate President. PDP battle INEC over beavers. Asks electoral umpire to comply with the tribunal order on device. You can find more of that on page 6. Zango Kataf killing, death toll rises to 17. This really sad one. You can read more of that story too on page 4. Gunmen kill 17 in Kaduna and Eboyi. Ex-Boko Haram fighter traditional ruler, 35 others arrested for drug trafficking. Ohaneze is solidly behind Obi to recover his mandate. You can find that on page 26. And on Naira redesign, Attorney General of Federation angry with Buhari, one chaos and anarchy looms. You can find more of that on page 28. We have a picture story here where we can see on the cash crunch, scores queue at point of sale, which is a POS unit in Ogun State yesterday, is becoming, unbearable for Nigerians. And we just hope to hear from the president and also the governor of the CBN soon on the issue of all of these, because it seems there's more, suffering that is actually awaiting us. So we hope something will be done about that before the weekend, which is for the gubernatorial election. And that's all on the Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, ACF warns Buhari, says don't stock nationwide unrest with Naira policy. Atiku's aide knocks Wike for deceiving PDP governors. Terrorists kill police, 16 civilians in Zangon Kataf. You can find the details on page 30. Roads Vivo assures marginalized Lagos residents of better deal. And the big story on the Guardian newspaper, still on cash crunch, economy sheds 20 trillion naira as policy weakens productivity of SMEs. And the writer says NECA says small businesses going into extinction, coming from the NLC government undermining productivity. CPPE calls on Buhari to intervene. Food factories shut down, lose billions. We used our wages to buy money for transport fare, says factory workers. You can start with the story on the front page and continue on page 6. At the downside of the paper, Tinubu APC leaders meet diaspora community. We have a picture story where we can see people stranded at the ATM or hoping and waiting that the bank.
Sports paper we're going through, and we're seeing how businesses are being affected by these naira scarcity, and then the fact that we have to use naira to buy naira.
True.
I know we'll be looking at this later on, possibly on business and finance, but it's really something that it affects everybody.
It does.
And I just hope that something will be done. We've been hopeful, and we'll keep being hopeful, hoping that the president will address this issue. We can see here from the riders, food factories are shutting down, losing billions of naira. We can see that even factory workers are saying they use their wages, as a means of transport fare. They use the wages for transport. So that's just for transport fare. You're not talking about feeding. You're not talking about accommodation and all of this thing. And it's becoming more and more and more. And this policy, just like we said, it was a beautiful policy when it was introduced in the beginning. But that it is right now, it's becoming more of a pain than a gain to us in the country presently. Because of course we know that no pain, no gain. But that it is right now, the pain is becoming overwhelming, and Nigerians really, really need a solution quick and fast. And this solution lies in the hand of the president and the CBN governor. We can see from the previous paper where we saw here that the ACF are actually angry with the president because he's yet to add up his voice. And questions came up, must the president actually add up his voice? Must he talk about this? And I remember saying that if we had a clear cutout of separation of powers, then the president would not need to come and say this, because already the Supreme Court has given. But because I think we're still yet as a country, when I say we as a country, we're yet to really cut out where everybody's power is. Where does the legislative power is? Where is the executive? Where is the judiciary? Until we do that, we keep going back and forth on certain policy that
Of course.
when the CBN says something, we'll have to wait to hear and all of this. And so with all of this, it's becoming very painful. We have the queues are coming back again, the result of the fuel queue scarcity. And if even in jails, the queues are already there. It's not
They
just
are.
in Abuja
Yes.
presently. And then how much will you buy a liter of fuel? It
True.
differs in various filling
It does.
stations. So all of this, and then I think last week we saw where some filling stations were not collecting transfer and
They were
period, but we
not,
can see that
yes.
some are beginning to. Reality is dawning on us, and
True,
then
of
we
course.
have to start collecting all of this transfer. But then we can see that even small places, you can't buy anything if you do not have cash. So I'm just truly hoping that the president will listen to the cry of Nigerians and actually do something as fast and as quick as possible, because we do not have time on our hands. We can see that even the where the bank where some of the techs in Nigeria are depending on is folding up, and then some people have to be laid off their shop and lay
Yes,
off
true.
their jobs and all of
True.
that. So I'm truly hoping and keeping my fingers crossed, and I know Nigerians are doing the same. We are hopeful that something will be done soon and very fast about this.
Yes, so by nature, be it a monetary or fiscal policy, it's usually long term to see the effect, whether it's going to turn out good or bad, or whether it's going to achieve the purpose in which that policy was created and implemented for in the first place. However, it's not supposed to inflict suffering on the people for the time frame, meaning in as much as this is a good policy, as we've seen it and we know what it entails for our economy and the plans in which the CBN has for it, we're not supposed to go through hardship within this period of time. It's not supposed to be. Policies are usually designed in a way that we transit into it slowly, gradually, and we get used to the process slowly. But in a situation where no prior pre-implementation was done, in the sense that our system was never built for cashless policy yet, we are going there gradually, but you see, you can't rush the process. And I believe that this is why we are suffering, that the process is being rushed, and policies don't work like that. They are meant to be gradual. They're meant to move in slowly into the system and help the economy the way it's been designed. And no wonder we are having small businesses closing, because these businesses were not built on the basis of being cashless. They were designed for cash exchange.
Sure.
You give me your money, you get your good or services. And this is majority of the businesses in Nigeria. So when we try to fast track policies, which is what the CBN and the president is doing, we are definitely going to see such hardship, because policies are not meant to put hardship on people. They're usually slow process. I think that's the point. But when you try to rush it to do which it's supposed to do in 1 year, in 3 months, then automatically the system will suffer. And that's what we're going through at the moment now. So I just hope that we hear from the president, we hear from the CBN governor, let them tell us the way forward. I believe that has just been the problem. We've been waiting to hear from them, which is not supposed to be like that, but it turns out to be like that as it is, and then it's like we have no option. We just have to wait on them. So I just hope that they don't thwart the aim of this policy by trying to fast track it to do what it's supposed to achieve in 12 months, in 3 months. I just hope that that's not it, because in the end, implementation is all that matters when it comes to a policy being good or bad. How you implement it, how you make it happen for the system is what makes it good or bad in the end. So I just hope that something is being said concerning this from the CBN governor and the president.
Of course, Rachel. Well, let's look at the next paper, which is the Metrics newspaper, and it's on elections. Syrup replies federal government wants the NBC to withdraw threats to shut broadcast stations. You can find that on the front page and also page 4. South African musical star Costa teach slums and dies on stage. You can find more for those who are interested in that entertainment story. You can read that story on page 15. And we have Nigeria's oil production output slows down as OPEC February output down by 80,000 barrels per day. You can start that on the front page and continue on page 4 too. And on the Guber election, Beaver's reconfiguration to be completed on Tuesday. You can find that on page 2 with the rider 170,000 polling unit result uploaded already on the RF. Temporary voters card to vote is not applicable for all Nigerians, but for individuals who went to court. Wow, okay. No political party will be allowed to look into the brains of the beavers. The result viewing portal will be functional during the March 18 election. Why we redeploy ICT director before the 2023 election, coming from Okoye. Well, you know, Rachel, I said wow because when I saw
Yeah.
temporary voters card is not applicable for all Nigerians, but for the individuals who went to court. I was expecting that this was applicable to every other person
It
because, yeah, I
should be.
remember the papers that said two individuals. So
Yes.
we're trying to say just those two who went to court are the ones that are allowed to use it. So how about the many others that did not get opportunity to approach the court? What then happened to them?
What
That means they
happens
have
to
been
them?
disenfranchised until the next 4 years, or if INEC will be able to issue their bill, their permanent voters card before. That's
Before,
for
yeah.
the other states that will be having their own election off
Yes.
season, which will be towards the ending of the year. But then I hope something will be done about that. I'm really happy that INEC have reassured us that the IREF will be functional during the March 18. That is to say that immediately when election is done and while counting is on, immediately I should log into the portal. I should be able to
Be
view
able to
that.
see
So
that,
I'm
yeah.
really happy that they have reassured us all of this. So we just hope that what they say is what will be applicable. And then we also have the fact that they said they are redeploying ICT directors. That is, they will be able to rectify whatever the issues are. So we will not be having the issues of beavers malfunctioning. We'll not be having the issues of technical hitches. We'll not be having issues of all those other technical issues that we had, that we encountered, all of that thing. And I just hope that they also address all of this rec, that's all those state electoral officials.
Yeah.
They should be addressed. Let us make sure that on the 18th of March, for the states that will be going for the gubernatorial and also the State House of Assembly, we just hope that the staffs that are redeployed to those various polling units should be there early so that everybody will have the opportunity, and then the beavers should be functioning. Because I keep making reference, during the presidential election we had a call that came in from one of the polling units where there were about 3,000 or so in that polling unit, but only 700 got to exercise their franchise. So what happened to the remaining 2,300? They have been de-enfranchised, and that is not fair to them.
not.
So I hope that INEC have taken all of this. That we can see that they have taken cognizance, they have actually
Yeah.
taken considerations, and that is why they're giving us updates of what they have done. So we keep our fingers crossed, and we're going to count. We're going to actually hold them accountable for what
We
they said on the
will. We
papers in
will.
case they go outside of
Yeah.
it. So our fingers are crossed, and we hope they'll do the right thing.
Even the issue of the presidential poll is not yet over. We're still holding INEC accountable to their word, because we know the promises we received from them prior to the election. We knew INEC promised us credible election. They promised us that the beavers were going to function as we expected, and it gave us hope that, we're going to have a smooth and clear election. But for some reason it didn't function as it should, despite the reassurance coming from INEC. Even when we remember the APC asking them if they are sure over and over if these beavers would deliver, but INEC as a body kept on telling us it will. So as it is now, as Nigerians, we have no option but to hope again that INEC would deliver what they've promised us this coming election, that truly the results will be live. We will see them as it keeps going up, as the numbers keep going up. I will be able to be here in Jos and see what the results coming in from Lagos, coming in from Kano, coming in from all over Nigeria. So we just have to keep trusting INEC.
Of course, of
Yes.
course. Other stories still on the metrics. We have support group writes INEC says APC has no candidate in Benue governorship. Armed robbers invade Ibadan community, operate with POS. This is really a sad one. We won't allow parties access to our database, says INEC. Group urges Buhari to caution Bauchi APC Guba candidate Abubakar ahead the polls. You can find that on page 9, and that's all on the Matrix newspaper.
On the Abuja Inquirer, as APC meets lawmakers elect, calls for Adamo's resignation grow. Sent more female lawyers to fight SBV in Abuja communities. You can read that details on page 6. Uni Abuja introduces 4 new faculties. Curfew imposed on parts of southern Kaduna as gunmen kill 17. Still on the polls, Serap tackles federal government over NBC's threat to shut broadcast stations. The big story, Q Nation. Long lines everywhere from banks, fuel station to hospital. What is that one? And we hope something is being done about that. We have Naira redesign as Buhari keeps Nigeria waiting. ACF warns of anarchy. We have a picture story that says Alex Oti Abia State Messiah is coming. And that's all the news on the Abuja Inquirer.
On national economy, let's take a look at what's happening on the world of business over there, where we have currency, buying, selling, inflation rate, 2022-2021 commodity prices. You can take a good look at that. The big story for the national economy, we have Naira scarcity. E-payment failure compound Nigerians' woe, with the rider persists hiccups, discredit 100 billion naira digital investment claims. Financial transaction was hit. Hackers on the plow take on situation to inflate pains. You can read more of that. We have a little story under that said, from the barter system to the use of cowries, metal, paper, money, checks, and a host of others, money has transformed over the millennium. Mankind has dwelt on the face of the earth from the transaction process. Today, that transformation of medium of exchange and store of value is still ongoing, manifesting in electronic and virtual forms. For Nigeria to enjoy the status of a modern technology, for a modern economy, it must adapt to the evolving trend. But for seamless evolution of electronic and virtual money to take place, adequate infrastructure and expertise is actually needed. You can continue to read more of how we can actually, adapt to the cashless, society on page 4. Farmers set agenda for Tinubu. You can find that on page 22. Beavers, RF disappointment and the way forward. If you want to know how we can do that, you can check that on page 17. Is making payment digitally worth the wait? That's a question. I know everybody wants to know the answer. You can check that on page 10, and that's all on the national economy.
On the Nation newspaper, foreign portfolio investments post first gain in 5 years. Businesses adopt new tactics to stay afloat of cash crisis. 53 train bus accident victims out of hospitals, 35 killed in Kaduna Katsina attacks. We have NDLEA intercepts heroin in freezer gas cylinder at Lagos airport. And the big story, Emefiele launches fresh plot against President-elect Tinubu. The writer says CBN boss conspire with Gen on Lagos polls, doles out 500 million naira new notes to Labour Party campaign. You can find the details on page 4. Governors take tough stance on naira scarcity. You can find the details of that story on page 5. And at the downside of the paper, we have Ondo government. We pay 24 billion naira yearly to pensioners. OAU shift resumption to March 21st. The details can be found on page 27. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Beavers reset ends today. INEC promises result transmission. You can find that on page 28. No going back on nationwide protests coming from the Labour Party, even though from other papers we can see they say that crisis is actually calling for crisis. That protest is actually calling for crisis.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that all that is needed will be done. The problem with protests in this part of the country is the fact that hoodlums always take advantage of such protests, even though it's peaceful. And I believe that if PDP can actually storm the street with actually having their presidential candidate, leading that protest because they were not happy with the result. Why would Labour Party do same? Because they also have the right
They do
to
have the
actually,
right,
of
yes.
course, they do have the right, because protest is not illegal
It's
as far as you are
not.
following the terms and conditions applied to all of these things. I mean, it's been permitted, but there all we need is that this protest should be coordinated in a way that at least you can have some security agency going together with them to avoid escalation of anything of that form. So we just keep our fingers crossed. You can read more of that on page 30.
And Stella, we also have to tell ourselves the truth as a country, in the sense that the problem with peaceful protests in Nigeria is not only the fact that hoodlums hijack the process, but also the fact that our security agents don't go about it the right way. I've been in the university before, and we've had a peaceful crisis concerning water. Very peaceful, like we're students, nobody had gun, nobody even had stones or sticks. But when the security agents were sent to us, they started shooting at students, and I knew a neighbor who narrowly escaped and had a very bad gun wound, and about 2 students died. And then I knew our school at that time were closed for some months, and a lot of back and forth concerning that incident. But it was a very peaceful protest, and when the security agents came, they also didn't go about it the right way. So aside from the fact that there are always sponsored distraction, that is people being paid to cause chaos in a peaceful protest, we have to say the fact that also even the security agents are having a tough time being able to calm the situation. As long as civilians are not armed and not pointing a weapon at you, and by weapon I mean a gun, you can't shoot a person holding a stone, you can't shoot a person holding a stick. That is not a weapon compared to the weapon you have. That weapon, even if he throws it at you, might most likely not meet you. But when you point a gun at an individual, that gun is going to get that. And let the security agents also know how to calm peaceful protests. When there is a problem, when there is a disruption from the normal process by whoever is doing that, you can't use your weapon against unarmed civilians. That's not being done, and that's one of the problem also. So it's from both sides. We also have to talk about the hoodlum and also the security agents handling the matter the way we hope they should, but often times they don't do it that way.
Of course, we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that they do same.
Yeah.
Let's look at other stories still on the Punch before we go for a break. We have the defense headquarters mom as Nigerian drops in global military ranking. This really sad one where we're being respected worldwide, but we're beginning to drop, and we have to check what is the problem and rectify it before it gets out of hand. Still on the Punch newspaper, at the Musfate National Assembly leadership top agenda as senators-elect meet Tinubu. You can find that story on page 28. Governors give Madami Emifele Tuesday ultimatum to obey the Supreme Court, with the rider failure to comply will lead to contempt charge Tuesday. This is coming from Zamfara AG. Rivers, Kogi, Ondo, Ekiti, ACF, Mbaka knocks Buhari as CBN faces fresh suit. Old Naira rejection spread. Report says 20 trillion Naira lost to CBN cash mop up. You can find more on page 221 and 22. Anger as gunmen killed 35 in Katsina and Kaduna. The issue of insecurity is still there. We have to really do something about that. And on a sack lecturer, Senate threatening to stop UI funding. You have to find more of that story too on page 18. We have the picture story where we can see the lady that lost her life on the train, and the dad is saying, my daughter preparing for masters in UK before the train crashed. It's really a sad one for the parents at a time like this. We send our condolences to the family and many others that are injured. We wish them a quick recovery. And that's all on the Punch newspaper. But before we move further with other paper review, we'd like to take a break at this moment so we can open the phone line so you can call us. And when we come back, we'll continue with the conversation. Please do not go anywhere. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, the program is the Dailies on Echo Television International, your news and current affair program where we keep you up to date with what is happening from our Nigerian newspaper. I still have Rachel Tanze with me in the studio. Good morning, Rachel. Thank you for
Morning,
being here.
Sally. Thank you.
Yes, at this moment, please, our phone lines are open. You can actually call us. Remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us, or you actually have to leave the premises totally so we can actually have a very good and smooth conversation here in the studio. And we're also live on Facebook. You can do well by dropping your comment and your contribution on story that are of interest to you. Please, let's continue with the newspaper review, Rachel, by looking at the New Telegraph.
On New Telegraph newspaper, CIT, financial institution boost payment to 1.1 trillion naira under Buhari. And on SVP, more shocks for Nigerian startup as bailout is ruled out. And you can find the details on page 25. From Onaikan, how INEC can prevent controversy in crisis. Ex-Boko Haram fighter, traditional ruler, 35 others arrested for drug trafficking. And on polls coverage, withdraw threat to shut down broadcast station, Serap tells federal government. Nigeria's first female senator, Franca Efebwa, dies at 79. You can read more of the story on page 3. And the big story on New Telegraph, Naira policy. Failure to obey court order will lead to anarchy. ACF warns Buhari. The writer says 10 days long enough for federal government to comply. Call banks to order, Adeleke tells CBN. Abia government threatening to sanction business owners, others that reject old currencies, as Ondo residents urge Akeredolu to compel lenders to accept old notes. Still on Goba poll, Bode Judge asks Yakubu to sack INEC ICT Director Adubiyi, and you can read the details on page 26. And on insecurity, 40 killed in Kaduna, Katsina attacks. Olobori Baji Omo Agege battle for Delta Soul. There's hope for better Nigeria, says Olubadan. You can read the details on page 30. PDP threatens protest over alleged indiscrimination arrest of members in Osun. The details can be found on page 26. Still coming from the Senate, ex-governors continue to hold the ace as 12 former outgoing governors kill, huddle to make 10 Senate, 3 others to no fate after supplementary polls. The details can be found on pages 9 to 11. Bajabia Mila El-Rufai tipped for Chief of Staff and then SGF. You can also find the details on page 2, 8 and 28. We have a study that says visiting the dentist could prevent arthritis. You can read more of that study on page 8. And that's all the news on New Telegraph.
All right, let's take a look at the first newspaper. Corps member killed in Lagos bus train collision buried as government confirms 53 survivors discharged from the hospital. It's really a good story, and we hope that everybody will be very careful next time.
Yeah.
Arrest, protest, Emifele demands premium times. You can find more of that story inside the first news. Buhari must obey Supreme Court ruling on Naira redesign. This is coming from the Daily Trust. Beavers, political parties, can regulators, coming from INEC. You can read more of that too inside the paper. And the big story on first news we have is Naira redesign. Disobeying Supreme Court could trigger anarchy. ACF warns Buhari. Says president disposition could cause breakdown of law and order. Urges policy has damaged Buhari's credentials. You can read more of that too inside the paper. Coalition demands Adamu resignation, backs North Central from Senate presidency. Wike and alcoholic, says Atiku's aide. You can read more of that story too inside the paper. NDLEA arrests ex-Boko Haram fighter Monarch for drug trafficking. Nigeria's first female senator Franca dies at 80. And we have armed robbers invade Ibadan, operate with POS. Police arrest 5 suspected human part dealers in Ogun State. It's really a sad one. We hope something is being done about it. I'm really happy that the police are able to, to bring those people to book. 24 hours curfew imposed on parts of local government in southern Kaduna as gunmen kill 17. Southern Kaduna killings, police vow to arrest culprit. And I think we have to say something about this killing in southern Kaduna, Rachel. We've seen it on our paper in Zango Katav. Over the years, southern Kaduna has been a very, very, will I say, vulnerable part
Yeah, it has
because it's
been.
been attacked over the years. And we've had callers from that part of the state
Yeah.
calling and urging and pleading with the governor to do something
True.
about the killings. No wonder when before the presidency, when El-Rufai was talking about some cabals, citizens or indigents from southern Kaduna were not really excited. Reason why? Because they said the killings in southern Kaduna, the governor did not really do what they
What?
expected him
Yeah.
to do.
True.
But when it came to the election, we can see that he has even been tipped as
For
will I say,
yes,
of
chief
course,
of
one of the
staff
chief of staff.
positions
So you
and
know
yeah.
that a lot of responsibility will be started on him or will be given to him. And I
Okay.
think
Um,
something
All
is
right, we
okay. We
have a
have a caller.
caller.
uh, Process as regards to Nigeria is always a problem. Doing a nationwide protest is a very good thing. But another thing is how did our military and police and other uniforms regards protest in Nigeria? One thing you should know is that when you go to labor market did not ask you whether you are a soldier or any other military in terms of prices of commodities. And prices of issue in Nigeria is not issue that only affects civilians. It's issue that threatens the unity of the country at large. And when you talk of protest, we are protesting for one thing or the other that is not the way it should. Yes, the uniform people is trying to put it the other way around. So I am begging the authority, this report and other authorities to help us that whenever protest is being going on in Nigeria, they should not take it brutally. During our university, I know a lot of protests will exist because of increment of school fees and all that. So we find it difficult. We really find it difficult because when police come, you normally be the other way around. You look as if people is going with guns and all what have you, which is not the way it should. If you look at what is going on now in France, people are protesting. They are protesting for a retirement of 52 to 54 years. You look at their way of protest, they are using even more harshly than the way we do it here in Nigeria. But yet, none of them is being shown by their police or other units. But throw it back to Africa, it has normally been the case. So I'm urging them to help us. That when we are doing our normal peaceful protection, there should not harm. And the area of Naira, you can't tell me that you are a good father and your son is flying from here to Jerusalem, and yet you don't turn back to that your father, that your son. We have been, my brother, who has ever paid you 100,000 naira with 200 naira? You can't do anything.
I
Thank
thank you
you
so
very
much
much.
for that contribution and all those stories, making your own, your view. And I was saying about the killings in southern Kaduna
Yes.
before we had that caller, actually contributing. And I hope something is really done about that.
We
Even
hope
though
so.
it's not only southern Kaduna, we saw there is some killing in Katsina, Zamfara, and also some part,
Yeah.
of the country.
True.
So this is really to draw the attention. No wonder already the president-elect has already been startled. We've seen business expert calling his attention. Farmers are
Sure.
calling his attention. So he has a lot on his table that
He
he needs
does.
to handle. And I hope he already have all his intelligence working up and about, because it's not when he gets into power he will start working. But then while you're still preparing, you should have all your your instruments, your equipment that will be needed for all of this. So we just keep our fingers and we just hope that the culprits behind all of this, more of them will be
I think we have
arrested.
a
All
caller.
right.
Oh, I think we lost that caller. Yes,
All
sir,
right, we
as you
lost
were
that
saying.
caller. So I just hope that you call
Yeah.
us back again because we really love to hear what you have to say. So, I mean, that's my own take on the killings,
Yes,
Rachel.
Charlie, I'm looking forward to where there will be a total end to something like this because this same thing happened. We
Okay,
have
we
a
have
call
another
on line.
caller.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning. Hello, are you there? Good morning.
We've lost
Oh,
the
we lost that
caller.
caller. We hope you call us back
We hope
again,
so.
Rachel.
So, Sarah, as I was saying, this same thing happened in 2019 in Southern Kaduna in the previous election. And just as we are seeing curfew being placed in some of the areas, some places couldn't
Hello.
vote. All right,
Okay,
we
the
still
caller is
have a
still on. Good
caller.
morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Yes, go
Morning.
on, sir. We're with you.
Okay. I'm calling from Abam Emmanuel.
Okay, thank
All
you,
right.
Manuel from Aba.
Yeah.
Go on, we can hear you.
Okay. I want to comment on a comment that
Okay.
Attorney General is angry. He's angry with Buhari. Can you hear me?
We can
Yes, we
hear
can.
you.
Please go on.
Okay. Honestly, I concur the motion because they have already ruled. They have already ruled that the old naira, the old 500 naira note and the 1,000 naira note should be relevant. But still, he, Buhari, being the president of the country, have not making any comment about it. And he's the only one people are waiting, the masses are waiting to hear from him. Does it mean that the federal government is above the law? Huh? What kind of a thing is this? Even though maybe he is not affecting him, but at least he have to listen to the hearing of the masses. Huh? If he would not want to do something, honestly, something must be done. This is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, sir, for that contribution.
Yes, so I'm just looking forward to where there will be no such story or incident recorded in Southern Kaduna. Enough is enough. Those people have seen a lot. They've suffered. I don't have to be there to put myself in their shoes. But then, obviously, with this attack, okay, I think we have another caller on the line.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, go on. We're with you, please.
Eh?
Go on,
We
please.
can
We
hear
can hear
you.
you.
Hello.
Yeah, we're with you, sir. Please go on. We can hear you.
Is that Equa Television?
Yes, you're on Car Television. Go on, we can hear you.
But
All right, maybe you
I'm
should
calling
end that
from I'm
call and
calling
call us back
from
again.
Benue
We
State.
really love to hear what you have to say about any story because this is Echo Television. Yes, sir. All right, thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right, Rachel, let's move to the next paper.
Yes, on the Daily Times newspaper, still on presidential poll, Labour Party INEC set for showdown over accessed election materials. And the big story, Naira external reserves stumble over high demand for Forex as commercial banks slash PTA BTA by 50% to $2,000. 10 days after Supreme Court verdict, Nigeria is still rejecting old notes, businesses crumbling. And that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Independent newspaper. Naira redesign, ACF won Buhari over disobedience to the Supreme Court. The Arewa Consultative Forum have warned President Muhammadu Buhari that the continuous disobedience to the Supreme Court judgment regarding the use of the old Naira note could lead to unintended consequences. The Supreme Court had ordered the recirculation of the old Naira note till December 31st, 2023. In a statement issued by its Secretary General Murtala Aliyu on Sunday, the ACF lamented that the Naira redesign policy has led to runaway inflation in food and other commodities. He said the current approach of the Central Bank of Nigeria have raised concerns. So you can read more of that on the front page and also on page 6. And on the Guber and State Assembly election, remove Odubiya INEC ICT Director Bode Josh tells Yakubu. You can read that on the front page and also page 7. The big story, reduce forex inflow, demand pressure, hunt external reserve.
So I think we have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
We're fine.
I'm calling from Narabi, Kaduna.
All right, please, we'd love to hear what's happening in Kaduna.
My name is Amutu Ibrahim. In Zango Katep. That is my area.
Okay.
Honestly speaking, the government our life as anything. They just take us like slaves from other countries in Nigeria. So this government to me is definite because all these killings, the governor of Kaduna State has never visited Zango Katep to know what is going on there. The president has never sympathized with us. They carry armies, don't jump them inside the Zango Katep. And we feel that when they see the people is just 1 kilometer. That's a people operated for many hours. And the government will not do anything. The army are not doing anything. They are just defending their social community in Zango Katep. So next time, we are going to organize ourselves. We can never take this nonsense and rubbish from the government. They can't be killing us like what? We don't know what is going on in this country. Now they want us to be slaves, and we are not going to be slaves because the government knows what he's doing. He knows his agenda. He's not a good person. The president is not a good person. They want to protect our life. And because of that, I prevented him not to the guidance. From all of us,
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much, sir. We just hope that. All right, thank you so much, sir, for that contribution on the issues in Zango, Kataf, and Southern Kaduna. We hope that all relevant authorities will be on their too and do the
hope
right
so.
thing. Let's quickly round up on the Daily Independent, where we have the reduced forex inflow, demand pressure, hunt external reserve, foreign exchange reserve hit lowest in 1 year at $36.414 billion. Analysts call for diversification of economy to reverse the trend. You can read more of that on page 29. NEMED warned of thunderstorm as rainy season commenced, so everybody should be very, very observant of that. Tinubu will form government of national unity, APC assures. NSCDC raises the alarm over circulation of fake Naira notes, so be very careful when you collect any new Naira note to be sure. Stations, you can read more of that on page 6. And death toll in fresh Kaduna NSIB building still in ruins. Stakeholders say demolition by the federal government inappropriate and unnecessary. And outside of the paper, we have ex-Boko Haram fighter, Monarch, and 35 others arrested for drug trafficking. You can find that on page 6. And we have a picture story, so you can do well by getting Daily Independent and reading any story that is of interest to you. Richard, let's take one last paper, please.
Yes. On the Nigerian News Direct, on Osun, Nigerians wait on appeal court. And African Bank of Development supports Kamadugu Yobe Basin with 362,000 euros grant. We have PEBEC ranks NCDMB first among MDAs in 2022 overall performance results. The big story is still on legal tender crisis. ATMs dispense old notes as banks reject old notes deposit. The writer says direct customers to follow CBN guidelines for deposit. Stakeholders lament failure of electronic platform. Nigerian economy loses 20 trillion naira over cash crisis. This is coming from Muda Yusuf. NSCDs and over circulation of fake redesigned naira notes. The details can be found on page 3. Makinde's re-election is non-negotiable, coming from PDP Southwest Zonal Secretary Owoko Niran. You can find the details on page 7. Governor Obiodun not distributing expired COVID-19 palliatives, 5,000 naira cash to civil servants, coming from the Ogun government. NAFDAC, NDLEA, Customs pledge to join forces to fight narcotics drug abuse among Nigerian youth. And on election coverage, Serap gives Buhari 48 hours to withdraw threat to shut down broadcast station. And that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
All right, thank you so much, Rachel,
You're
for doing this
welcome.
with me. Thank you to our viewers, thank you to our callers, thank you to the crew members and every other person that make this program a success. Until we come your way again, do remember that if you're tired, you can find rest in Christ. Have a blessed day ahead.